It's time for WTAP's Football Frenzy, the Mid-Ohio Valley's home for the most complete football action. Sponsored by West Virginia University at Parkersburg.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to week number 9 of your Football Frenzy, brought to you by West Virginia University at Parkersburg. It was another busy slate of games in the Mid-Ohio Valley, and another exciting one at that. The games have gotten more and more important as we are hitting the stretch run. I'm Josiah Schooneman, joined alongside by Andrew Knoll. Good to have you here. A lot of fun action tonight as well.
Absolutely, Josiah. It's always fun watching football this late in the season where everyone is putting their best foot forward. We're going to start with a matchup that had big implications in the Twin States League.
Yeah, well, yes it did. So tonight the Warren Warriors looking to bounce back at home as they hosted the Fort Fry Cadets. So coming some momentum with 2 straight wins. Cadets sitting comfortably. We'll go right to the game as we have a touchdown from Eric Carr, who bounces it to the outside. He's into the end zone for the touchdown. Warren strikes first. They take an early 7-0 lead. Then it's Grady Heston sneaking it across to make it 7-6. On the ensuing Warrior drive, Seeley in the shotgun throws it through the seam for Landon Fairbanks, and it's nothing but green grass in front of him. Nobody will catch him as he takes it all the way to the house for a long touchdown. Warren extends their lead to 14-6. Then early in the second half, Eric Carr receives the kickoff return and he breaks free. He works his way past midfield with nobody around him. He will take it down the sidelines and he is gone. He runs it in for the touchdown. What a play from the special teams unit to make it 21-6. Moving to the fourth, Warriors at the goal line, and Seeley on the keeper. He jukes his way in for another score. Warren comes away with a big victory over Fort Fry, 28-6 the final. And in case you missed the game between Warren and Fort Fry, you'll have another chance to catch the action tonight with the rebroadcast beginning at 11:30 p.m. Once again, it will be shown on our My channel.
Now let's head out to the Cabell Midland Knights hosting the Parkersburg Big Reds. There was a lot of action quick in this game as Parkersburg loses the ball and watch the Knights swarm to the ball, and they get it. Knights take over now on offense. This sets up the Knights for this play here. A nice touchdown scored by quarterback Caden Pauley, who calls his own number as he makes a few moves and breaks it to the end zone. Look at that play. What awesome. They take the lead. The Knights decide to go for 2, and Logan Hobbs takes care of it all himself, getting to the end zone, 15-0 Knights. The Knights on offense again here, pouring it on as Midland's Marcus Dean gets a great block, takes it in for the Knights, and their 3rd touchdown of the half. However, before the end of the half, the Big Reds get back into this one. Cooper Kincaid drives it up the middle, landing Parkersburg on the board for a touchdown to get them back in this one. However, the Big Reds would fall by the final score of 48-21 and drop to 2-5 on the season.
And over at Erickson, Parkersburg South Patriots hosted the Morgantown Mohegans. And we're going to start with quarterback Colin Hayes. He's going to pass it over to Eli Bartley, and he tries to take it upfield before Carter Cooper is able to take him down. Then Bartley redeems himself, scoring a touchdown here. They do get the extra point to make it 7-0 with 7 minutes left in the second quarter. Then it's Morgantown's A.J. Thomas taking it up the field. Then he bounces it to the outside, and he will score a touchdown of his own. Yeah, making it 7-7 with 4 minutes left in the second quarter. Back and forth we go. Devon Forshee gets involved on this next play. Hayes finds him, and he catches the pass, cuts it back before being taken down for the stop. Yeah, pretty move there. And it's Maddox Twig now. He'll take the handoff and break free. He's able to get past everybody and works his way down the sidelines, but he will finally be caught by a Patriot defender. Not before, though. He picks up a huge game. And then Twig with another big play. He rolls out to his right. He'll tuck and run for the score. Morgantown ends up defeating Parkersburg South with a 28-14 score. Andrew.
The Ripley Vikings were also in action tonight as they hosted the undefeated Herbert Hoover Huskies. The Huskies in the first quarter were playing the long game by sticking to the run, but a heavy rushing attack by Devin Silvis would help out Herbert Hoover early. The Huskies would strike first with a QB sneak by Matthew Hatfield to put them up 7-0 early in that one. The Huskies would be able to take it down into the red zone again, and Devin Silvis would rush up the middle and was close to getting in for his first touchdown in this one. Look at that battle. Yeah, Josiah, back and forth battle here.
Look at that.
Quarterback Matthew Hatfield would be the beneficiary of this, though, as he finishes the job on this drive with the QB sneak up the middle to put the Huskies up 14-0. A lot of scoring would happen in this one, but Herbert Hoover, in the end, would keep that undefeated season alive as they would take down the Vikings, winning this one 56-28.
Going over to Ravenswood, the Red Devils looking to find their first win of the season as they took on Tyler Consolidated. Jumping to the second quarter, the Knights were quick to strike as quarterback Brady Strode drops back to pass. He finds his man Branson Winfrey as they get it for the 20-yard touchdown. And the night wasn't over for Strode from there, though, as he would have a chance again to find another receiver, this time Reese Davis. He drops back to pass, and he finds Davis, who makes a great catch, and he would dive into the end zone for a 30-yard touchdown. The Red Devils would try to answer, but on this play, Owen Curtis, he will take the snap in the shotgun before getting sacked by Tristan Schaefer as the Red Devils would go 3-and-out. Then on the next drive, Branson Winfrey would rush down the middle of the field. He finds his second touchdown of the quarter with this 20-yard run for the Knights. Tyler Consolidated, in the end, would go on to dominate this game. They get their fifth win with the final score, 56-7. Well, stay with us. There's a few more games still left to cover on tonight's Football Frenzy,
including a big Twin States League battle in Marietta between the Marietta Tigers and the Point Pleasant Big Blacks.